Morning, let's kick the weekend off with a horse racing review from the weekend. Why not? It's international friendlies break, and God help you if you've been trying to make any money on those in the last week. But in horse racing, well, an extraordinary race at Beverley on Saturday. The 205 Perfect Part, 125 to 1, trained by Brian Ellison and ridden by Cam Hardy, beat favourite More Lamb, 7-2 favourite, 125 to 1. And this led on to quite a lot of discussion. It led on to discussion in within my personal groups of my runners. It led to discussion with Discord, at bookiebashing, support tickets, and on emails. So I'm trying to gather all of this discussion into one because it's very legitimate and see if we can make some sense out of it. So in one of my groups, there's a guy I've known. He's godfather to my son, so I know him very, very well. Okay? And he said a while back, he can't pick a 100 to 1, not just winner, because, 100 to 1 winners are so rare, but he can't pick a 100 to 1 horse to place for the life of him. And yet, he got into a kind of routine of going into shops and maybe sticking 2, 3, or he wouldn't be averse to 4 100 to 1 horses and higher into a lucky 15. And as you can imagine, the variance of that strategy, especially with shop betting where the volume is so much lower, the variance is crazy because, of course, let's just break it down. If it was neutral EV and the 100 to 1 was fair and we're getting 1 to 5 odds, you're looking at about a 20 to 1 chance, a 5% chance, that's 1/5 odds of 100 to 1, 20 to 1, that horse is going to place. So one race in 20, it's going to place. But I mean, that's not going to return big profits on a lucky 15. So what about 2 of them? Well, it's 20 times 20. That's 1 in 400. 1 in 400 of those independent doubles is going to come in. The variance is huge. The volatility is huge. The value may be real, but the thing about these lucky 15s is they can be positive expectation lottery tickets. You can get an edge on the national lottery, but that doesn't mean you're going to win the national lottery. This is the same with the Powerball in America. A lot of advantage players, myself included, will start getting hold of tickets when the jackpot's $1 billion. But I mean, it's degeneracy at the highest order because even though it's a good bet, it's not coming in. It's just not coming in. It's so statistically unlikely. Now, of course, 5%, 20 to 1 isn't statistically unlikely. But my runner, I think, over time, decided he couldn't pick a winner. He didn't want to, and he wanted to change the strategy. We've gone through quite a significant multi-month losing run of lucky 15s and said, shall I start capping it? And I was like, well, look, the value's there, and I'm happy to go years at 100 to 1 waiting for the big one. But if you'd rather have more regular income coming in and more regular pickups from the shops, then we can maybe think about putting just a single 100 to 1 horse in, or even a 66 to 1, 50 to 1, 40 to 1. That's easy for me to say because I'm very comfortable with the mathematics of my horse racing tracker and that the value perceived is real. But it did lead to legitimate questions from those that use it and haven't had much success betting on 100 to 1 horses, like my runner. The question was asked, is the EV accurate, especially with these high odds horses? Because what you tend to find is that the average EV on the tracker may be 108%, something like that, but the EV of these high odds horses are very often purple. These 100 to 1, 125 to 1, 150, 200 to 1 horses are often the horses that are at the top of the tracker at 120, 130, 140% EV. Now, there's something I can't explain, but I'm glad at least the renowned gambling expert Matt Trenhale confirmed this on the Bashcast, that the higher the odds, the higher the EV is going to be. There is a mathematical reason for this. You don't get 150, 160, 170% EV at 1 to 2 odds, right? But you do at 100 to 1 odds. something around confidence of modelling, and there's probably, I think there's actually a little bit more in there. The fundamentals of the difference between 100 to 1 and 150 to 1 isn't that much, but between 1 to 2 and, 1.53 or something, the difference between the margins between what the fair odds are and the back odds are is more applicable, is more noticeable at high odds. I'm explaining this really badly, and the reason I'm explaining it really badly is it's not intuitive to me, but I've seen it in the data, and I've heard it from Matt Trenhale. So I believe that there is a fundamental reason for why higher odds in golf, in horse racing, naturally has higher EV when the bet is good. Okay, but does that mean it's accurate? I'm going to come to that because we have data. More questions have been asked. Are high odds horses profitable at all places, or do you need a lot of places? Do we need 6 places, 5 places for these 100 to 1 horses to be sneaking in 6th and 5th? Are they profitable at 2 places, at 3 places, for example? So I want to have a look at that. And also, the question has been asked, just generally with all horses, is this kind of betting using a horse racing tracker, is this kind of betting profitable at standard places, or do we need to have extra places in a race for this to be profitable? So all of those questions have been asked, and the very final question that has been asked is, what have we changed at bookie bashing? Because this person says, I've been hitting horses very heavy over a 4 or 5 year period, and this is by far the worst run that we have been on. Okay, so I'm going to start with that one. I did have a look at the data immediately, and I actually had heard that from a couple of people. So I put something up on the site saying I'm going to just have a look at this bad run that we're on. But then I looked at it and I couldn't find a bad run. Now, 1 month's worth of data isn't a lot of data, and you're going to get big swings between, not just between different people, but between different bookmakers. But what I saw was over 10% return on investment, 9% at Bet365, minus 1% at Betfred, 13% at William Hill, 13% at Ladbrokes, 9% at Sky Bet, 6.7% at Paddy Power. Okay, so maybe this person was just on at Betfred, maybe at Betfred shops, and maybe they were running much worse than the minus 1% that we had seen. Another person, when we had put the message up, felt the need to send in their stats using the Pro Tracker at Bookie Bashing. They had made £26,000 since April, so that's April through May. That's an 18% return on investment because the EV they were looking at was £24,000. So they were on 3,769 selections. So, I mean, this just goes to show that 2 people can be looking at the same thing and can have vastly different results, outcomes. And really, you've got to focus on the long run. Don't focus on the short term. And a lot of the time when, I don't want to repeat myself, but when asked the question, has something changed? Is something wrong? What am I doing wrong? I've got friends who are losing. I've heard from friends that this doesn't work. Often the answer is sample size. It feels so annoying how big the sample size has to be in advantage play and professional betting, and this is why we have to log the results ourselves, and we only look at historical results when the data set is huge. If anyone asks or makes the statement, I have friends that know that it's not accurate or an algorithm isn't accurate, I always encourage the data to be sent to us. I've yet to have been sent any data that shows that the horse racing tracker isn't profitable or isn't accurate. I have heard numerous times that someone has a friend who has the data that shows that it's not accurate, but these people's friends never send them in to me. So I've yet to see it. if you do have data to show that it's not profitable and it's not accurate, please send it in. I would love to see data that would help me refine anything that isn't right with the algorithm, because everything can always be improved. Okay, having said all of that, I have looked at some larger data than just April and May, because my figures for April and May, it's still a very short time period. This person that sent in 17%, that's still a very short time period. So let's look at a bigger one, okay? Now, in terms of standard versus extra places, I'm just going to put this to bed. I looked at 22,000 horses that were in extra place races. They had an ROI of 4.2%. I looked at 12,000 horses in standard places where there wasn't an extra place added, and that was 3.5%. Now, yes, you are getting a higher ROI when there is an extra place. Our algorithm should take that into account, and it should take into account the calculation when it's a standard race. So it is a little bit less on standard races, but it's not massively less. That in fact could be noise. That could be a little bit like we see profit on a Wednesday but not on a Tuesday. But it's not a very significant difference. And if the question is it profitable on standard places, it just is. This kind of calculation, this kind of review is profitable. You could eliminate all of the extra places if you think that maybe that you're getting restrictions betting on those and still be profitable. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if we look at 100 to 1 horses, do we need to be betting on them at all? And if we are, do we need to be betting on them at certain places? So the first things first, since the 1st of January 2023, at 12 p.m. across 6 bookmakers, Bet365, Betfred, Ladbrokes, William Hill, Paddy Power and Sky Bet, there were 1,230 plus EV horses at 100 to 1 or higher. The average EV of those horses was 128% EV, expecting a 28% return on investment. Now that's quite big compared to, all of the odds, where there's about an 8% average EV. So we're seeing larger EV there for the 100 to 1. And how would we have done? Well, most of those, nearly half of them were exactly 100 to 1. They had a 25% ROI, 41 places and 4 wins out of 500. So we're getting, 1 place out of 12 horses in that 500. And we only need 1 out of 20 for that to be, breaking even. Not that many 110 to 1 horses, but there's a few 125 and 150 to 1 horses. They're profitable. There was only one 175 to 1 horse, but there was some 200 to 1, 250 to 1, and they won. Well, one of them won anyway. Looking at all of them, look, over 100 to 1. 1,230 horses, 73 places, 9 won. The average expected value of those horses was 128.01%. So we expected a 28.01% return on investment. And if we were unit win staking on those horses, we would have won 28.2% return on investment. That's a staking 3,800 quid for a £1,000 profit. So of those 1,230, and those are BB Algo only. I've only looked at BB Algo because I think we can maybe run with the assumption that the BB Algo is in-house. The default is using exchange prices, and the exchange prices are theorized to be more efficient, more intelligent, and therefore the BB Algo is less confident. If that's going to be profitable, we don't need to worry about the default. I hope that assumption's okay. I think it is. So I'm only really looking at BB Algo, and if BB Algo is good, then we should be good. I just want to see who the highest horse was. Who was this guy? The 1342 at Gowran. It was Cart Day 2 Relays. There you go. So he was 250 to 1 up in Gowran. If I put him in there. See latest news. No, he went off at 100 to 1. So, promising newcomer. But he was 250 to 1 at lunchtime. So there you go. I haven't written down which book there, but it was one of the big six. So, I think that maybe puts to bed whether it's profitable or not. Does that mean bet on it? No. You might not like the volume and the volatility like my runner doesn't. Because if you have a look at the chart there, you're really relying on hitting those places for your return on investment. And there can be very long periods of time between those places. As we said, there are 12 places, well, 1 out of 12 of those 100 to 1 horses are winning. But you could easily go 20, 30, 40 without hitting a place, or maybe hitting one place and you're still down. So it's up to you. It's up to your personal risk profile and tolerance whether you want to go with that or not. And I can understand why you wouldn't, because there are other things at play. You know, will the end of the universe or my death happen before I start realizing the EV of these horses? It's possible, especially at 300 to 1 and 250 to 1. You might want to eliminate those. And of course, when one does win, it's such an insane return on investment. It really bumps up the profits. What about places? So should we be betting only at 6 places, 5 places? Well, for sure, we do see that the ROI increases as there are more places. We've got to kind of be wary about sample size. The vast majority were 3 and 4 places in here, but they were both profitable. 2 places wasn't. There's only been 1 placed horse at 100 to 1 or higher out of 60 in a race paying 2 places. So that's a minus 67% ROI. Does that mean don't bet on 2 places? 60 horses is a small sample size, especially at those odds. I mean, the overall sample size of 1,230 is still small at these odds, but this is the data that we've had over a year and a half. 3 places, 18% ROI. 4 places, 11% ROI. 5 places, 110% ROI. 6 places, 158% ROI. So the ROI is growing with places. Do we want to eliminate any of those? I wouldn't take that data with those sample sizes and make a decision myself. You might want to choose to eliminate 2 places. That's the only one that's showing a negative ROI. Okay. Is it accurate? I think saying that we were estimating 128% and we got 28% isn't inaccurate. Again, there is a sample size issue here, but if we want to increase the sample size, we're going to have to wait another couple of years. So what we can say is it's not showing that it's inaccurate at the moment, and all we can do is review that. Okay? What about betting by EV band in terms of accuracy? Certainly, if you are a little bit more selective about the horses that you take, then you're going to increase your overall ROI. We see that across everything from the combo bets tracker to Double Delight Hat Trick Heaven to the horses as well. There's a lot of, if you're betting 101, 102%, the accuracy of whether that is a plus EV bet or not comes down to the mathematics. It could be 99, 98%. So you're mixing in a few of these uncertain, possibly negative EV horses in. Whereas if you're betting at 140%, you can be pretty confident that that isn't really 99%. It does make sense. And look, if you were only betting on 101 to 102% horses, you would have had a loss of minus 0.22%. Whereas if you were betting up at 105 to 110%, you'd have 3% ROI. And that climbs to 6% at 110 to 115%. It climbs to 25% at 120 to 125%. It climbs to 38% at 130 to 135% EV. And 73% at 140% EV or higher. Now, your problem is, of course, the majority of horses are 101 to 105%. I think nearly a third of horses are 100 to 105% on the tracker. And they show the kind of lower ROI. I mean, you're still getting 7% ROI if you're betting at 105% or more. but that is dropping down to 5% ROI at 100% or more. At 110% or more, you're getting 10% ROI. So look, variance, volatility, it does start to flatten, and your return on investment improves as you are selective over the EV that you have, but then you have fewer horses. So your volume goes down, and the amount of time that it takes to realize your profits goes up a little bit of time. So that's a trade-off. You might prefer a little bit of a smoother betting journey that takes a little bit longer, or you may prefer a more volatile betting journey and your profits speed up a little bit. And personal risk profile, I cannot comment on what is best for you. And finally, betting on odds. Is there anything in terms of in the data that shows we shouldn't be betting at particular odds? Well, all I would say is it's about the same. If you were to filter odds below, okay, it's about the same until you hit about 16 to 1, and then it starts to grow. So you could argue 16 to 1 might be a good filter for you to, take out all horses below, if all you're interested in is return on investment. Remember, of course, volatility and variance, you're going to get fewer winners because the odds are increasing, but the return on investment is going to be higher. And if you were just betting on horses at 70 to 1 or above, your return on investment would be way above 20%. It would feel like the graph was just going like that, except it isn't, because your winners are so few and far between. Again, it's personal risk profile. Some people prefer just to bet at lower odds. They are going in for a little bit of a bumpier ride doing that because of the smaller return on investment. Some like to bet just at higher odds. Some like to bet at all plus EV horses. Some at higher plus EV horses. Some like to bet at higher places, higher place numbers. Some lower. And some like to bet on standard races, and some like to bet on extra place races only. None of those strategies are bad. They are just different return on investment and variance profiles. Okay, it's up to you how much you can handle. My runner couldn't handle putting in 2, 3, 4, 100 to 1 horses into a lucky 15. In all honesty, I don't blame him. In all honesty, now that we're in our 40s, I don't think we would have been alive before we'd hit a big one on that lucky 15. There's also a slightly interesting concept that if all come in, we've way blown the max payout that's going to come from the bookmaker. Now, if the max payout's $1 million and we aim to make 1.2 million, that has no effect, or really marginal effect on the EV, because it's so unlikely that 1.2 million is going to come in. But now all of a sudden, if you're lucky 15, if that's 30 bets, if 20 of those 30 bets were going to exceed the max payout, you might want to consider that you're maybe losing a little bit of equity and you need to start staking lower and lower and lower. But I thought that those were interesting, those analyses. In terms of the horse racing, we have this data up. Actually, I've put it in a spreadsheet in this blog, right at the bottom of this page, so you can go and download that and do your own review. If you or your friend has data that shows that particular strategies or components of the horse racing tracker is not profitable, and that data is of a large enough sample size, please send it in to support@bookiebashing.net. We'll take a look at it. If it's legitimate, we'll get back to you with recommendations of changes that we'll put in place and give you a big thumbs up for pointing something out to us that we missed. And if it's not legitimate, we will tell you why. Okay, back in a couple of days with something on the Euros, all right? By the way, 2 words: Cristiano Ronaldo. That's all I'm saying right now.